this should be fairly straightforward. We're going to start on our top plane, and we're going to come to origin and start a sketch on the XZ. And we're going to make a center diameter circle here. That's 12 millimeters. And we're going to create an extrusion of this circle, and it's going to be 63.65 millimeters. And with this newly created cylinder, the next thing we're going to do is start a sketch on the XY or front plane. And we're going to select this top face, project it. And with it projected, let's start a new sketch. And this is going to be a sketch of a 2-point rectangle. And we're going to click on that line that we just projected because we want to have 2 rectangles here. And hopefully you could see that I have one rectangle here, another rectangle here. And I'm going to set a dimension now between the top and bottom of the first one. And I'm going to make this this dimension 0.8. And from here, I'm going to set a dimension from the top of the first one to the top of the second one. And this dimension is going to be 3.8 millimeters. And now I can set a dimension here on the second box, and I can make it 1 for 1 millimeter. And with this newly created shape, what I want to do is set these 2 points to be vertical with each other. And same thing on the left side. And I'm going to set a dimension here at the top. And I want to make these about 0.8 coming in. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to just take a quick dimension of this top circle. And this top circle measures out at 12. So what I want to do is I want to set a dimension. I basically want to make a line and place it right here on the center point. And this is going to be a construction line. And now I could set a dimension based off of that construction line. So I can just kind of set my dimension here. And, you know, if I type in a dimension of 5, or even if I type in 6, then that's going to be all the way out. But if I do, say, 5.5, then it's only going to come out to this. So with that, we don't have to worry about this outside dimension. This is really just a detail. So we're going to, right now, finish our sketch. I'm going to come to revolve. I'm going to click on these two. The axis is going to be this line that we made. And this is going to be a cut. So I'm going to hit OK. And now we've created our cut. That's what we want. So right now, the next thing to do is we want to create a pad on the bottom. So I'm going to click on this face. And I'm going to start a new sketch. And I can just click on the face, click P, hit OK. And right from here, I can just go to extrude and drag this out. And I want this to be 0.2 millimeters. This is just a pad on the bottom. And instead of join, I could just do new body. And that's really all we want it to be. And to distinguish it from the rest of them, what I can do is just change the appearance. And I can make this, say, you know, a glossy black. And now we can see it a little bit more easily. And now that we have that out of the way, the next thing we can do is create the pad on the top. So what I'm going to do is what we did last time. I'm going to start a sketch for the top pad. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to make the contact on the top. So I'm going to create a sketch. And I'm going to create a sketch on the XY plane, same one we used before. And we're just going to sketch out what we want here. Gonna look something like this. And we just want to make sure that we're getting the general shape we want in the beginning, and then we can always come back and refine it. So I'm going to click on that XY plane again, on the solid, or sorry, tools, and I could do a section analysis if I want to see what's going on here. So let's just connect these points to each other. I'm going to make this line vertical. Really basic stuff here. And you can always click on this line, project it as you need. And what we want to do is find the center of it. So that's going to just pop up. You can see that the triangle here. That means you've touched the center. So all I did was I dragged my sketch point up to where the center is, and it automatically kind of connects it. So anyway, I want to make this 0.5 millimeters tall. And as you can see, we actually already had a very similar dimension. So I'm just going to kind of leave it at something like this. I'm going to drag out a couple more sketch lines here. And so you can see what I've made here. I've made basically the sheet metal section, or the metal section of this whole thing, which is really just the top contact. So I'm going to create another sketch line that's construction. That way I can come to solid, revolve, click on both of my sections, and click on my axis here in the center. And when I revolve it, that's going to be a new body. And you can see when I look at it from the top, you can see that it's a brand new body that I just created. And I can change the color of this. Again, we want to distinguish between our bodies very easily. So I could change this to be, say, a metal. So I can come to metal, and we're just going to use this. Okay, great. So from here, now that we've created this, what we want to do is make the top pad. So I'm going to click on this face, or I can come to my selection priority and just do faces. So I'm going to click on this face, and I can now start a sketch on this face. And same thing as before, just going to create a center diameter circle. And I'm also going to create a second circle, with the second one being a diameter of 10 millimeters. As I've said many times, we can always change these values, but we want to have something to go off of. So from here, what I need to do is create my final circle. So I'm going to create another circle, and it's going to stop about here. And now I can just create an extrusion, as we've done many times before. And this is going to be a distance of 0.5. Going to be a new body. And that's going to be our pad. And you may have seen that I made two sketches here. Now this one, the 10 millimeters, is around where we're going to have our cover. So that's kind of the sort of sketch that I want to work off of, or that I want to be cognizant of when we create that. So I'm going to just change the look of this, the appearance, just so that it's distinguishable. And I'm just going to go with either a paint or something like that, something that is easy to use. And I'm also going to turn off my section analysis here. So now you can see what we've created is we have our battery, our simple type of battery pad on the bottom. We have our cut-ins here, and then we also have our cap covering it. So what I'm going to do is I see one thing that isn't perfected, and it's the cap, the steel cap. So I'm just going to go back, edit the sketch, and I'm going to drag this out until it's flush with the battery. And you can always, of course, use a coincident constraint if you really want to do it perfectly. This is mostly just a sort of sizing model. So we're going to take some sort of freedoms here. I'm going to make this 1 millimeter. It's going to be something like that. And now it's definitely a lot more even. And you can see that it's a lot more realistic. Now these values are going to change a little bit depending on your manufacturer. They're all around the same size, but some of them don't have the top piece, other ones do. They might be a little bit shorter. Some of them don't actually have these marks on the side I've seen. It really depends who you get it from. So from here, we're just about done. The next thing we want to do is create our skin that goes on the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a sketch here on the XY. And we're going to create our skin around where we ended that other sketch. And we want to do is click on, a kind of basic shape. And you want to connect that to what you already have here. So I'm going to click on the line, click P to project it. And I'm just going to place this right here on the line, make it coincident. And same thing here. Now you could just project this outer line, but I'd rather just create a new sketch than have to start projecting everything. Makes it a little bit easier sometimes. So I'm just going to drag this out, connect it here to the bottom. You may have to reproject some of these points if you're missing them. All right, select both of them, make them coincident. And we're almost done. We just have to drag this to the center. And I'm going to drag out my second line here. And what we can do to be perfectionists is we can fill in this cutout with a sketch. And I can trim some of these lines that are really not necessary. And if you need to, again, you may need to project some of these sketches that we've created. So let me add a couple of those lines to fill in this part. Make this vertical. And there you have it. So the way that I did it, I kind of added these lines around the sketches that we already have. Now you can, of course, use the offset command, but if you use the offset command, you're going to get the whole sketch. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to delete what I've done here, and we're going to try the offset command to see if it's easier for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to select the curves that I want. And you're going to see that it automatically selects some of the curves, not all of them. But if I offset this to 0.15, which is what I want the skin to be, I can hit flip, and then you can see that it actually flips it onto the other side. And once you have that, just hit OK, because you have pretty much what you need, with a few exceptions. So I'm going to close off the sketch here, drag this down, connect these points, and want to set a dimension here, set a dimension here, so that they don't move. And once we have that, we can just finish off the parts that it didn't work with. So we just close this, and once I set this last dimension, we can finish this sketch. So let me set a dimension for 0.15 from the bottom, 0.15 millimeters. And make these vertical with each other. And now we can do our revolution. So I'm going to create our sketch line we need for the revolution. I'm going to make this a construction line, just like before. And when I come to solid, I'm going to come to revolve, click on it. It's already selected. It just wants the axis, which I'm going to select here. And this is going to be a new body again. I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm going to turn off my section. And I want to set basically some fillets inside here. So I'm going to come to my fillet command, and I'm going to click on some of these hard edges. I can just kind of drag out. And the same thing goes for these ones at the top. If you can do it all in one feature, then that's great, but that definitely doesn't always work. Depending on whether they're internal or external, sometimes it doesn't work. So you may have to play around with it, but for the most part, you can select most all of the edges that you want. And I'm going to make this maybe 0.07, something like that. And you can, like I said, there are all kinds of problems that can happen from this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the body I made, right click, and go to isolate. And now you're only working on this one body. So it makes it a little bit easier for us. Now it's much easier for me to select all the things. I didn't think I would have to do this because it's a fairly simple part, but sometimes that can happen. So Just gonna see if it works now. See, it works very well. Now I can set this to what I want. Maybe 0.05, something like that. Maybe 0.1 of a millimeter. And we can just about leave it at that. And before we finish here, let me just de-isolate these. So now that we have all our parts back, what I'm going to do is change the color. Right click, appearance. And I can make this a nice green to separate it from everything else. And we got ourselves a fairly accurate model. Now, like I said before, your battery might be a little bit of a different size. This piece at the top, it might be a different size as well. I can come to press pull and I can just change this if I want, right on the fly. I can make this like this if that's the way that it's created.